So you guys ready to begin the campaign? Oh, you bet I am. I was born ready. I cannot wait to play my new character, Maddox Blackhammer. He's a badass. Okay, so we begin on a rainy night in the coastal village of Balmore. The three of you meet in the Brass Eel, a sailor's tavern, when all of a sudden, oh my god, really? A tavern? You disrespect me and Maddox. I would rather eat this character sheet than have him start in a tavern. What's the problem? Dude, everybody knows that starting in a tavern is the worst. The worst. This was just a big waste of time. We should just gone bowling tonight. But no, he started us out in a tavern like a monster. Let's get out of here, guys. But guys, hold on, wait. I'm sorry. Hello Internet, this is Skorikowski, and today we're going to discuss campaign openings. Some tips on what you should do, what you might not want to do, and some ideas and some options to consider using. Now, this video is system neutral. I think the proper term for that is system agnostic, which I think is just a weird sounding term. I don't like it, so I say system neutral. So it doesn't matter if your campaign is going to be for D&D, Call of Cthulhu, Edge of the Empire, Cyberpunk, or whatever else, the same general concepts apply. While a game master might toil over the perfect opening adventure, laying the groundwork for the whole campaign, whether that be the plot, the themes, the mood, the world, or the larger details, many forget the importance, or at least the potential importance, of a very good opening scene as we begin our game. And that can be a problem, because while you, as the game master, you understand the larger story and what all the exciting adventure and characters, treasure, and everything else that you're about to drop on your players don't know all that stuff. All that they have is what their characters experience, so a lackluster beginning can be a bit deflating to them, or just simply a missed opportunity to pump them up more. We want our players excited, so you only get one chance to make a good impression, so better make it a good one. First, let's talk about taverns. One of the prevalent opinions is that a tavern is a tired cliche. People get impassioned about this. Never start out in a tavern, they scream on every message board I've ever seen. I find the venom towards taverns to be a bit weird, and I suspect that many, if not most of the people who ran about them the most are people who just want to play rather than actual players. They're just reciting some, truths and common wisdom that they heard as if they themselves had endured this opening dozens of times. Personally, I think taverns are great locations. A lot of great stories open up in a bar. You've got people from all walks of life that are gathered together in one room. You got some entertainment like music or gambling, seedy individuals making illicit deals, locals, out-of-towners, and booze and other substances to loosen tongues and inflame tempers. Casablanca is my favorite movie bar, and I mean it's one of my top 2 favorite movies. I just absolutely love that movie. But here we have a wide assortment of people, all with their own agendas, hopes, and despairs. We have evil Nazis in the same room as members of the underground resistance, shady individuals looking to make a fortune, a cross-section of the world all pressed into a single location as the band plays and the drinks flow. Same with Star Wars. We get this cantina, and the first thing that we learn is that droids aren't welcome here, so a little bit about the world there. Then we have these weird aliens everywhere, some of them pick fights with our heroes. Then we have some shady smugglers agreeing to carry a farm boy and a space wizard out of town without the Imperial interfering with that. Great, great location. Star Wars really does love their bars. The Mandalorian starts out in a bar. He shows up, he kicks some ass, then he flies off across the galaxy to where, you guessed it, another bar. So tavern openings get a lot more hate than they should, in my opinion, and the problem isn't the tavern, but more of how that tavern is employed. A lot of game masters make the mistake of opening up the game in a bar and then just letting the player characters go. No direction, no conflict, no real plot, and now the players are just aimlessly standing there, ordering imaginary drinks and wondering what it is they're supposed to be doing here as the game master is expecting them to take the lead and explore this world. But the players don't have enough information yet to begin exploring the world. They're lost. It's like when you're trying to learn a new subject or learn a new skill and you're so new to it that you don't even know what questions to ask yet because you're just a complete blank slate. So they need a direction, a quest. Don't just say you're in a bar and leave it at that. Give them an objective. Why are they here? What is their goal? You're here looking for a bounty, or you're here to meet your old friend who just got back in town. Whatever opening scene you do should also come with the initial hook or the initial goal as far as what that player character's reason is for even being there in the first place. Then, shortly after that, if not immediately after that, give them an inciting incident. Bounty hunter comes in looking for them, a fight breaks out, they get robbed, a patron shows up offering them a job, werewolves! Maybe some bad guys come wandering in and they're looking for the same thing that the player characters are looking for. Some sort of threat, drama, or something that escalates the initial hook. It doesn't need to be anything that's life-threatening, but it should be interesting and give a call to action to the player characters. So it should be something that's interesting, that the characters don't just simply watch from afar while sipping their drinks, but something that's interesting that compels them to act. And the reason that we most often use taverns for this setting is because those are really good gathering places, where strangers can meet and bump into one another. So if you want to avoid using a tavern specifically because, that's a verboten area, choose a different gathering place instead. It could be a Starbucks, a festival, a public execution, a fancy ball, the pier where all the fishermen hang out, passengers on a cruise ship, strangers on a train. My long-running Call of Cthulhu campaign started a party at an NPC's house where all the player characters were guests. So if you want to use a generic place, where a highly educated wizard, a burglar, a priest, and a sellsword might just happen to bump into each other, then a tavern is hardly the only place that can happen. The other huge mistake that a lot of game masters make, and I've certainly made this one myself, is failing to introduce the player characters to one another. The most important part of the sentence, "you meet in a tavern," is the first two words, "you meet." It sounds so simple, but that initial contact with one another is critical for your group to transition from total strangers to a party of adventurers. And by saying "you meet" means that the player characters have now bypassed that awkward first contact, and we can immediately get to them all interacting with one another. A lot of game masters and players like to imagine this all happening organically. We put all these characters in a room together, these total strangers who might not have that much in common, and then we just simply expect that they're going to meet and interact with one another, join forces, and go on adventures together. And when that works, that is beautiful. So beautiful. However, experience has taught me that if you expect the player characters to casually meet, get along, and join forces because, well, that's the reason that we're all here, isn't it? It's a pretty meta thing. Everybody around the table should know this. I've got my character, you have your character, we're here to play this game, so of course our characters are going to team up together, right? Yeah, except for in reality, that doesn't really always work that well. You can easily end up in that situation where the player characters don't meet, or they just take forever before the player characters meet. Then there's that one player who just gets so deep into the roleplay and they wander off doing their own thing, and maybe they do introduce themselves to the rest of the player characters, but they do it and they offend the other player characters so badly and they insult them, and now the player characters don't get along and we got a fight on our hands. Or you've got that one player who just goes out of their way, does everything they can to avoid initial contact, kind of making a game out of making the GM and the other players around the table try to wrestle their character down so they can all meet and we can start this adventure. It's a type of roleplay terrorism where they're hijacking the game to make it all about them. It's like we all agreed to come here and play this game, but getting their characters to meet is like trying to pill a cat. And if your whole group wants to spend the first 2 or 3 hours of the campaign just trying to meet one another, then great, have fun. But very few groups actually enjoy doing that. That one player who's doing it, they might enjoy it, but the rest of the players, not so much. And if the first session gets derailed because the dice or that one player decided that they wanted to prevent the group from getting to meet one another and nobody really got to play the adventure, the game master is the one that's going to suffer the blame for that. So opening the campaign up after the player characters have met and they're now sitting around a table together, that removes the wild card factor of them getting to meet one another in the first place, and now we can immediately go forward with the campaign itself. The bar is exceptionally crowded tonight because the big game going on is the Night City Death Dealers versus the Arasaka Sakuras, and everybody is wanting to watch this game. So finding the only available seats in this place, you guys end up at the same table. After a few drinks and talking and getting to know each other, you've started enjoying each other's company. So, who are each of you betting on and how much? I actually had a player once write themselves out of a campaign without ever meeting the party. So when I say that the power of "you have already met" can be a lifesaver, I'm serious. However, who says that the meeting has to be casual or by chance? We could make it a situation, like maybe the player characters are all coworkers. This could be a regular job, or maybe they're in the same military unit, or maybe they're brought together for an initial adventure, an assembled team, and they all meet one another when their employer gives them that job. So the relationship as coworkers is how the player characters meet. It also means that they all don't have to like one another that much if the adventure is related to whatever job it is they have. After all, we don't always like our coworkers, but we're stuck working with them. Or maybe they meet in jail. The first game of Dungeons & Dragons I ever played opened with the player characters all meeting in a dungeon cell, and they have to work together in order to break out. The Conan adventure, The Pit of Cthulhu, opens up with the player characters as prisoners aboard a slaver ship in the middle of a storm, and the gate to their cell is smashed open, and the first thing they have to do is fight the crew for the last lifeboat on the ship before that ship sinks. An exciting intro explains how they met, why they're together, and gives us a dramatic hook just right out the gate. You could have a shared interest bring them together, so during character creation, all of you work out some sort of hobby or interest that all these player characters share. Maybe they like a certain sport or vintage cars and they meet at a car show, or maybe they're all in the same acting class together. Maybe they all attend the same temple or the same church. Maybe they're all juggalos. Maybe they're all friends with the same NPC, and that NPC was kidnapped or arrested, and now the player characters have to come together in order to save this common friend. Or they could meet during an adventure. Conan the Barbarian did this, where Conan and Subutai come across Valeria as they're trying to break into the same building, and Valeria makes fun of them for not having ropes written down in their character sheets. In Fritz Leiber's story, Ilmet and Lenkmar, Fafhrd and Grey Mouser meet while both of them are robbing the same guy, and then they're like, "Man, you seem cool, we should be best friends for the rest of our lives." After sneaking past the guard, the two of you approach the Snake Tower. Rumors have said that there are all sorts of riches hidden inside this place, but as you're getting closer to the building, you see a figure emerge from the shadows ahead of you, and you realize that it's a thief, and she's got a big coil of rope just thrown over her shoulder, and you realize that both of you had the same idea of who to rob tonight. So, you've only got about 2 minutes before the next patrol of guards comes by. What do? You seem trustworthy. We should team up. Two fools unafraid of death. You even bring a rope. Also, who says that the campaign has to open with the player characters meeting one another? What if they already know each other at the start of the campaign? I brought this up in my Backstories 201 video, where they might be childhood friends, or they met in the military service, or their history with one another is already established prior to the start of the campaign. Traveler does this, where each character links their backstory with two other characters. In Cult Divinity Lost, where character relationships are very important, the player characters are encouraged to already have established relationships prior to the first game. Now, this might be a shared dark secret that they have. They don't even have to like one another, but their shared history has created a valuable bond between them. And while I mentioned the movie, the Alien role-playing game usually has characters who not only know each other prior to the start of the adventure, but those characters already have their favorite and least favorite characters established among them. So now they not only know each other, but there's a dynamic once that first game begins of how they already are going to be responding to one another. And then those bonds, those relationships, those might change during the course of their adventures, but at the very beginning of the campaign, we already have an established relationship set up. The first Dragonlance adventure, Dragons of Despair, opens up with the player characters not only knowing one another, but begins as they're meeting up for the first time in 5 years to report their progress on a shared quest. So this campaign opener is now a reunion between old comrades, and the initial plot hook is one that these characters have already been doing for 5 years. And now the player characters, they still get to introduce themselves, sort of catching each other up on, how much they might have changed and what all has happened to them over the past few years, but we still have this really cool hook, a reason for the first meeting as being this set rendezvous. Next, instead of starting the campaign focused on being at a specific location, such as you all meet in a bar, consider starting it out already in the action, or in medias res as they call it. This could be the adventure before the first real adventure. I suggested in my reviews for Secret of Bone Hill and the Village of Hamlet that instead of simply opening up with the heroes arriving in this town, give them a job where they're hired to protect a shipment that's headed there, so the player characters meet on the road as they're all doing this job. Maybe we have a combat, and by the time they arrive in town, the adventure begins, and they've already formed that bond with one another. And you don't even have to play this part out. You could simply play the part that's the conclusion of this, like we find in James Bond, or the Italian Job, or in the Expendables, where we open our story as our heroes are wrapping up their previous adventure. The three of you were hired by a halfling named Thilman to protect a barge of goods that was headed down to Rustedford. It's been a pretty unexciting 3 days so far, just slowly floating down the river. But finally, on the last day, once you're about 2 hours from the village, you're passing through some woods, and all of a sudden your boss just lets out this huge cry of pain, and he goes scrambling across the deck and hides between some crates. He's got an arrow that's jutting out of one of his shoulders, and then a pair of spiked chains rise out of the water before you, and they stretch taut across the river as shouts start coming from the woods all around as arrows start raining down from above. Let's roll initiative. How cool would it be to open up your game with a car chase? Your characters have stolen an artifact. The players might not even know what it is. All they know is that there are 2 cars after them. Maybe they're cultists, maybe they're police. They got to make it 2 or 3 miles to reach their airplane or their boat or whatever it is in order to escape them. The adventure we used to start off our Conan campaign was The Vultures of Shim, and that story begins after a battle, after the player characters are now the last survivors of an attacked convoy. So all the PCs meet one another, all panting and with bloodied swords as the final survivors of this small army, and together they have to decide if they want to flee for the hills and make their lives again, or go out and rescue their boss from this army that just kicked their butts. So you could open with something like that, or what if you begin in the final moments of that big major battle, like maybe the last 1 or 2 rounds of a big combat. So all the PCs start out and they're only at a quarter hit points, most of their spell slots are spent, they're almost completely out of ammo, there's bodies strewn everywhere around them, and now they've got this equally battered enemy just barreling towards them for this final charge, and the PCs are having to stay in the line, and they're opening it up with the very end of a big combat. The Achtung Cthulhu adventure, A Quick Trip to France, opens up with the player characters given their mission objective just before they leap out of an airplane and parachute into occupied territory. I mean, why start out in a bar or a party when we could begin with a night jump into occupied France? Our last Traveler campaign opened up with the adventure Flatlined, where the player characters awaken aboard a crashed spaceship suffering temporary amnesia. So they don't know who they are or how they got there. All they know is that the ship that they found themselves on is sinking and they need to team up in order to escape it. Once you've opened it up with an injection of action, we can then slow it back down and give a flashback or some explanation as to how the player characters even got here in the first place. But the option of opening up the adventure with action and with our characters in immediate peril, whether they even all know each other or not, that is far more exciting than having all the PCs, casually meet one another at a party or social gathering with zero urgency. However you want to do it is fine. Not all types of campaign openers are going to work for every campaign out there, and you're going to want to change it up campaign to campaign, giving all your players something fresh. So if you did something that worked really well one time, you probably don't want to use it the next time because that's going to feel like a repeat of what they've already done. So figure out what you think would be just exciting and fun and fresh for them to do. And if you do want to start this adventure off in a tavern or in a high-speed chase, that is perfectly fine. Don't worry about the cliches. Just because some stranger on the internet thinks that opening up in a bar is tired and old because they've seen it 100 times, that doesn't mean you or your players have seen it 100 times themselves. It might be their first time that they've seen it, so it's definitely not a cliche to you. And if that stranger who's not even in your game at all has an issue with the fact that your game is starting off in a tavern, really that's their problem, not yours. And finally, and this one's probably going to get me a little bit of hate here because I'm about to tell you a secret. The exact way your campaign opens doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be the most amazing and original thing. I've had campaigns that I can't even remember how exactly we started them. I can recall what the first adventure was once we had started, but as far as exactly how that campaign began, I can't remember, and I've asked some of my players, and neither can they. The adventure, the game itself, that is the important part, and that should be your first focus as a game master. Okay, well, your first focus as a game master should be that your players are all having fun, but the exact way that adventure starts, that is completely secondary to that. And as long as the opening of that adventure gets the game going smoothly, then that's really all that you need. So it's perfectly fine if your opener to that just isn't that memorable. Just don't let your opener be memorable for the wrong reasons, like it was bad. And if your game does have a bumpy start, that is perfectly fine. The adventure, what it is that the players do and the memories that they make and all the fun that they have, that is the important part. A lot of my favorite TV shows had rough openings. Maybe they had a full rough episode as the first episode, but what came after that was the important part. That was the part that hooked me and got me watching it, got me recommending it to all my friends over and over again until they finally told me to shut the hell up, or finally they conceded and watched it, which they always agreed with me. So the greatest opening in in the world. That doesn't matter if what follows that opening isn't fun. So, if your game doesn't have a great opening, as long as the adventure itself, the session itself is fun and memorable, that's really the only thing that matters. And because I keep getting scolded for not mentioning it that much on my channel, in addition to being an award-winning YouTuber, a podcaster, and the soon-to-be face at Q Workshop's RPG icons, pre-order begins next week. You should get some. I'm also a fantasy author, so if you want to support my channel or simply want a good book to read or listen to or just see how it is that I handle a story introduction, my 4-novel Valdekin series follows a group of modern-day monster hunters armed with sentient magic weapons. It's full of chases, gunfights, sword fights, and an international backdrop and a good deal of horror. Then my novel Ashes of Onyx, a world-hopping revenge story about a sorceress hunting for Las Carcosa. It's got action, strange worlds, drug addiction, monsters, magic duels, and of course, the yellow sign. And of course my Black Raven series, which is 2 volumes of pulpy sword and sorcery thief adventure short stories full of heists, daring heroics, and leans very heavily into the classic tropes. You can find all my stuff in print and ebooks and audiobook, link in the video description below, and if you read it and you enjoy it, a rating or review is greatly, greatly appreciated. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see some more of our stuff, such as game reviews or how-tos, just hit that subscribe button. Till next time, amigos, y'all have a great day. You know, I was thinking, I decided that I might have overreacted just a little bit to that tavern earlier, and if it's okay with you, we'd still like to be in your campaign. Oh, well look who's coming back. Yeah, Todd says that he's going to run us through something, but he never schedules that first game. I decided that I'd much rather be in a campaign that starts off in a tavern than being one that doesn't start at all. Well, you're going to need a new character after eating your last one. Oh no, I still got Maddox right here. That's Dweebles' character I ate earlier. You ate my character sheet? The point needed to be made, and I ain't sacrificing Maddox. He's too cool.